Okay, hi everyone. Good morning. This is Priyanka Salot. I am the co founder of the Sleep Company.
Priyanka, let's start with your origin story. Looking back, can you connect the dots on what led to you becoming the founder of the sleep company? What's your background? Where do you come from?
I split my life into three phases, right? The first is I was born in Rajasthan. That's where I spent first decade of my life. Then the
Okay.
next decade was traveling away from home, which is all my education. I did my engineering like a typical kid in India who does engineering, and then I decided to go for my MBA. And that's where in MBA is where I met my co-founder and my partner in real life, Harshil. I think after MBA, I decided to do marketing. I was with PNG. That's where I spent almost a decade of my life. That's where I found two things. One, I found the fact that I love consumer brands. I love anything which is tangible, where you can really make a difference and maybe change lives of your consumer, right? I started loving what I was doing. But I think one thing I was always clear, I wouldn't say from childhood, but I think I was always clear, when I went for my MBA, that I wanted to start something of my own, right? And I think I always joke about it. I read a lot of autobiographies, and I think they played a huge role in me taking that plunge. So I think when I was in PNG, I was always tossing around with a lot of consumer business ideas, right? A lot of products, a lot of categories. And this category happened in a very, very interesting ways. A lot of people ask me, from selling Ariel and Tide and Pampers, why mattresses? And I think that's what has been little interesting. Two things triggered, I think, why mattresses. Yeah, when in 2000 2020 2019 2020 I was pregnant, and I think I was like any new mom, right? When Ayan was born, my son, when he was born, like any new mom, I think one thing I faced was sleepless nights. I think you pick any mom and ask them what do they want the most when they just deliver a baby. The thing they will tell you is they want sleep. They really, really want to sleep, even a few hours of sleep, and that's what I was struggling a lot with. I couldn't sleep at night. I was having a lot of back pain issues, and hence I tried a lot of products that were available in India. There were a lot of products that were selling online, and I tried few of them. And I think coming from a consumer product background, it just struck me that the quality of products that were available in India were far behind than anywhere else in the world. And I saw a lot of brands were trying to make the, I would say, make the availability better by offline to online, but nobody was trying to change the product, right? I saw we were sleeping on foam mattresses or memory foam mattresses, which were there before even we were born, which were there even before our grandparents were born, right? So something, and it just stuck that something where you spend almost one third of your everyday, which is one third of your life, was still those old age foam mattresses. And I think that's when I got obsessed with changing that. And I said the product needs to become better. The analogy I always give is, the mattresses were like, your feature phone versus feature phone existed. So, before I was born, our phone became smart, our TVs became smart, our house became smart, right? The only thing that didn't change was mattresses. So I think that's when we decided to make our hands dirty, and we decided that let's change the product where we spend one third of our life. And that's how I think the R&D work on the sleep company started. I decided to leave PNG, and I decided that I need to spend a lot of time on R&D. And I think we were lucky that we met Dr. Tripathi, who's been in the industry for over 40-50 years. We worked with him for more than 2 years on R&D before the sleep company was born.
Okay. So Dr. Tripathi is like in like a material science kind of a role, like,
Yeah,
or what?
yeah. So Dr. Vijay Tripathi, he's our R&D head. He has worked with India Defense Labs, which is DRDO, as a scientist, as a material scientist for decades. Right, we were lucky we got in touch with him. We told him the brief very simple, that we need to make the mattresses much better. We need to make the mattresses that can make people sleep better. Right, and then we worked with him for 2 years. We worked on literally thousands of formulations, thousands of products, multiple trials, and so much back and forth for those 2 years. And I tell everybody, Akshay, those were the 2 years which were the most difficult years. We didn't know will we be able to crack it. Right, and I think after 2 years when we saw the product, we did a lot of trials and we launched it. And after that, I think it's been a fabulous journey.
Uh, you know, you are from a marketing background. It wouldn't have been too hard for you to launch with a product which is not a 10 on 10, because you would have been able to do the marketing for it. Why did you wait 2 years? What were you looking for that you got at the end of those 2 years in terms of the product? Why not start with, most founders do, like, start with a 6 on 10 and then build your way up,
Yeah.
keep iterating. So I'm just curious why you took that approach.
Yeah.
What was it that you were seeking?
Sure. So I think the easiest route, Akshay, was to take a product that existed in the market. Right? You would see hundreds of brands doing that. Pick a product, just package it with your brand name and sell it online. That was the easiest thing. And as you said, that could have been done literally in a month's time. You get a website, you list on marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, and you just, what do you need? You just need your brand logo and your packaging. And that's what we realized everybody was doing. But I think one thing I credit to my experience at PNG, I always tell people this. I think one thing I learned in that decade of handling amazing legacy brands was that if you want to build a long term brand, right, you have to have a product which one actually solves a consumer problem, which is differentiated, right, which is truly superior, differentiated, and solves consumer problem. And that is the reason we spent 2 years on R&D, right, before we launched the product. Because what I always tell, I don't want to create a new age brand. I want to create a legacy brand which can stay for decades, which consumers love, and which actually change our consumers' lives. And that is the reason we decided to spend 2 years on R&D. We wanted to be sure that we have a product that can make that happen.
From a technical standpoint, what was that product? What did it do at the end of 2 years? What did you achieve?
Sure. So
What
let
software?
me
What, like?
Yeah, sure. Let me maybe a little bit step back and tell you a little bit about the mattress category, right? If you see mattress category, old age, hundreds of year back, you would see people using cotton mattresses, right? Cotton mattresses evolved to something called coir. Coir is the scrap of coconut trees. Right after coir, you started getting foam mattresses, right? Then you started getting little bit evolved form of foam mattresses. Foam is polyurethane foam, right? People would say high density foam, HR foam. Then some buzz came memory foam. Memory foam was found in 1960s, before I'm sure anybody in this room was born, right? And it was not formed for the purpose of sleeping. It was developed for the purpose of scientists in NASA, right? So, and that became the buzzword, right? And after 1960s, you've truly not seen any innovation. What we did was invent a completely new material type in this industry, and that material type we call it smart grid. Smart, so you see this blue grid structure, right? You would see this in across all our experience centers, right? So we developed a literally Asia's first and only smart grid mattress, which is made from a polymer, right? And what is the properties of this polymer? Let's understand this. Why is this better than a foam mattress or a memory foam mattress, right? It's a polymer which is organized in the form of a grid. What it does, two things very differently compared to a foam or a memory foam mattress. One, because of the grid structure, our body, our body is not a straight line. You have a head which is popping out, you have shoulders which is popping out, but then you have a back which is a bigger surface area. This grid structure changes the softness and firmness depending on what body part is it. Right? On smaller body part, which are curvatures, the grid will be soft, which means you get pressure relief. Whereas on a bigger surface area like your back, something which is like, for example, a bigger surface area, the grid will be firm. No mattress can be both soft and firm, which is what this polymer based smart grid mattress can be. Right? I think that's one thing. So doesn't matter what your body shape is. Are you a fat person? Are you a thin person? Are you a tall person? And doesn't even matter what your sleeping position is. Are you a side sleeper, back sleeper? The grid will adapt and change the softness and firmness basis your body needs, which a typical form mattress cannot do. Right? So I think that's one thing. Second, the grid is 90% air. It's a typical king size mattress has more than 2500 air channels, which means when we sleep, typically a firm mattress will retain body heat and get little suffocating and hot. A grid is a very cooling material. Right? Third, which is very, very important to understand, most mattresses sag over time. That means they become a little bit uneven, they lose their support properties. A grid is a very, very, it has high longevity. It's a very, very durable material. Right? And that's the reason I always say that the 2 years of work today also, every single day we continue to work on how to keep on making our products better. Right? Superior products is really the DNA of the sleep company.
How does it achieve this firmness and softness both, depending on which body part? Like, can you go a little deeper on that?
Oh, sure. I would love to. And, we also demonstrate the same thing to all our customers who visit our experience centers. We have something called a sleep lab, which we keep in all our experience centers. This is just to make sure that we educate people, and it's proof of pudding, right? And to show consumers how the smart grid works. Right? Let me just show you with a very, very simple demonstration of how this works. So actually, if you see this material, right, this is what is we call smart grid, and this is what goes in all our mattresses. Right?
Okay.
If you see, this material is a very, very stretchy kind of a material, which is not the case with a firm mattress. Right? Now let me tell you how this works. Because of the grid structure, right, let's say your head, it's a curvature and it has a smaller surface area. Let's say when you press it, you have only few walls under your surface area and they buckle down because
Ah,
it's a very elastic and responsive material.
hmm.
It goes down. Can you see?
Yes,
But now
yes, yes.
let's look at your spine and your back. It's a much bigger surface area. So now let's imagine, I'm taking a book to show how this works. Imagine this to be your spine or your back, which is a much bigger surface area. That means many walls come under that surface area. So you need lot of force. Actually, under force also it doesn't go down. Right?
Right.
That means on a bigger surface area, because there are more walls, they withhold the pressure and they give you more support. So it's like they give you support where you need support, they give you cushioning where you need cushioning.
Okay. Okay.
which
Understood.
if you which if you look at, let's say, a foam or a memory foam mattress, either it will be soft under every body part and it will literally buckle down, right, or either it will be very, very hard, which one could say is good for the back but very, very uncomfortable.
Okay. And this grid is like a layer in the middle with foam on top and bottom, or is it on top, or how is the
So
construction done?
yeah, so we've got different type of mattresses, different variety of mattresses depending on, do people like a little softer version, do people like a firmer version. So grid, most of our mattresses is always the top layer, right, because
Okay.
that's what your body gets in touch with, and that's what provides either support or pressure relief.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is a foam base underneath that.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Understood. So, you know, you had that advantage of coming from a consumer brand, which is P&G, one of the best known global consumer brand companies. How did that advantage translate into how you launched the product and the approach of selling it, your go-to market?
Yeah. So I would say I'll tell you how did it help and how still I felt very lost. Right. So let me talk the second part. So I think when I launched, and it was a digital first brand, we launched in October 2019, and we launched, we created a website on WordPress, and which took us few weeks to do. And then we launched on Amazon and Flipkart. And I still remember my early days, and I was lost on how to reach consumers, right? Because I had worked on legacy brands, detergents, diapers, where you reach your consumers mostly through TV, right? Digital played a very, very small part of our media mix. And I used to wonder that I've spent 10 years in marketing and I don't know how to reach my consumers. Is Google the right touch point? Is Meta the right touch point? And I was so lost. And I think, and that's what you learn, and every brand is different. I always tell people every category is different, every brand is different, right? So there is no fixed recipe that works for on how to reach your consumers. How much money should I spend on Google, how much money I should spend on Meta? So one thing which is very, very important, and specifically as you start up and even through the journey, having that experimentation is very, very important. You make sure you're doing 100 things, right? Even if 90 fails, that's okay, but you will learn and you will know what doesn't work, and the 10 succeeding will tell you what works. Right. So I think even though I had 10 years of experience, I was equally lost. But I think what I would say, which really was a big, big benefit, and I would completely, credit it to my experience. And I think of brand building. How do you build a brand to be more of a science and not art or creativity? Right. And I think that to me is something my experience taught me, and we are very careful about how we look at the sleep company as a brand. And how do you build a strong brand? I think that's what I would say is more of a science.
What is, can you, how did that philosophy that brand building is a science, not an art, how did that translate into real world actions at the Sleep Company over the last 5, 6 years? Like, can you give me examples of,
Yeah.
how branding is a science?
Yeah. Maybe let me highlight 3 4 things that we are very paranoid about at the sleep company, right? And why I say brand building is a science, right? I think let's look at when you anybody launches any brand, right? First, I think it's very, very important as founders, because what you think of your brand is what will translate. As founders, we need to be very, very clear of first what kind of a brand is it that we want to build. And what do I mean by that? Think of your brand to be a human persona, right? Let's say if your brand was Akshay, right? What kind of tonality your brand needs to have, what kind of a look and feel your brand needs to have. For example, when I say tonality, right, is your brand a more professional, serious brand? Is your brand has a tonality which is more witty, right? Is it more science led, is it more emotion led, right? I think that clarity can only come from founders, right? On what kind of a brand you want to build, and you need to be very, very clear on that, right? So I think we were very clear that we wanted to build a brand which is based on science, right? A brand which has understood human ergonomics, human body, developed products which are patented, which are disruptive, and hence our DNA was superior science led products. And that is the tonality of the brand, right? Second to me is, who is it actually you want to sell your brand to? Who's your target audience, right? And which will define actually your tonality of the brand as well. I think very, very important, who are you targeting, right? And I tell people, you need to make, we sell consumer brands. So what is the first word? Is consumer, right? So you need to place the consumer at the epicenter and then design everything around it. Third, very, very paranoid about something I call consistent assets. Right, let me tell you what do I mean by consistent assets. And when I say consistent assets, everything you do, it doesn't matter is it a Facebook post, it doesn't matter is it a Google display ad, or is it a 30-seconder YouTube video or a TV copy. What are the one or two things which will go everywhere in your communication? Right, those consistent assets are very, very important. For example, one thing that you see, the blue that you see at the back, right, the blue is the blue you would see everywhere from the sleep company, and it's not shades of blue. Right, let me give you an example. Coke bottle, Coke logo, right, it's red color. Do you see that changing? No.
No.
Right, do you see different shades? Suddenly they become bored, and do you see a orange shade there or a lighter red there? No. Right, brands are built with consistent assets communicated over decades and decades. Right, sometimes I feel so sad when I see some brands, new age brands, and their Instagram pages. One post is red, one post is yellow, one post is blue, because they want to look, because maybe and this was a joke at PNG, and I'll tell you, and once my manager told me that we marketeers get bored of a communication, but go meet your consumers. Even if 10% know what you stand for, it's a win, which doesn't happen. It takes years to build that. Right,
Mm.
fourth is very consistent communication. I'll give you an example. From day zero of our launch, we've been saying we are India's first and only smart grid mattress, and we have been communicating the same thing for 4.5 years. Every single communication that we have has that same tagline for 4.5 years. Right, I think it takes, and I always say we want to build a legacy brand. We want to build a brand which will stay for decades to come, which will make Indians sleep and sit better. Right, and where people, which consumers love. Right, so we are not building a short term, a new age brand. We are building very disruptive new age products, but we want to build a legacy brand.
Okay. I want to zoom in on some of these things. Uh, is it possible that you could, an a hypothetical question, is it possible you could have selected a wrong persona? Like you said, you need to, what does your brand stand for? You decided it stands for science backed
Yeah,
product. Uh, so is it possible that a brand could have selected a wrong persona and then it's okay to change it? And
absolutely.
okay. How
Right?
do you validate that? Is this the right persona or not? Like, have I selected the right positioning of the brand?
Yeah. So I think that depends. Something, you would hear the word a lot, TAM, right? What is your total addressable market size, right? And I think that today generation, it's easiest to check product market fit, right? And obviously, what you're communicating, who you're targeting, is that the right target audience for your product? And digital gives you that. Right, you can launch a product online, like literally in weeks, if not weeks, even in days. Right, and then you don't need to be PNGs or Unilevers. You don't need to have a store network of millions of store to test something, right, or that kind of money to test something. You need to be passionate, you need to have a product that you believe in, right, and you can launch it online. And very quickly, by listening to your consumers, by talking to your consumers, by seeing how the early trends are, right, you can easily learn, one, if the product is right, two, what you're communicating is right or not. And if you
And
feel that it doesn't work, you need to change it. And I'll give you an example. In the first 3 months of our launch, me and Harshil, we literally talked to every single consumer who bought our products. Lot of consumers who were based out of Bombay, we went for the deliveries. We used to talk to every single consumers. We made hundreds of iterations literally in the first 3 months of our launch. Right, and that's what, that it's always a iterative process. Right, today also, any new product we launch, I wouldn't say they're success on day zero.
okay, is there a science to how you listen? How you listen to consumers? Like, I know big companies use like focus group and all, but for a startup founder, what advice do you have on how to listen to your consumer and figure out if your communication is resonating, if what the brand stands for is resonating, or you need to change it?
Yeah, I think there are multiple things, right? I wouldn't call it science, but I think there are multiple ways to do it, right? And I'll tell you some of the things that we use at the sleep company to do it. One, I think, and that's the best part of being in today's ecosystem, which is so digitally led, right? And today, though our business has a lot moved to, I would say, omni, consumers still find us, discover us online. So how do you make sure you listen to your consumers? And there are few things that we at the sleep company do. One, today we make sure everybody in our team, not just let's say customer experience team or the team which are responsible for managing online reputation, but every senior leader, even Harshil and I, we would make sure we talk to consumers every month. We would make sure we are reading reviews online, we're reading comments which people are leaving online. I think that is one of the best ways, I would tell you, to understand how consumers and what consumers are talking about you. And I'll give you some examples of that, right? Two, obviously there are tools that you can use which are available in the market, which gives you an understanding of, for example, word cloud on the digital ecosystem, right? What people are talking about you more, what people are talking about you less, your positive word cloud, your negative word cloud, right? Third, I think,
This
which
is
we
like
do.
reading the product reviews, the comments on posts, and
Oh,
all. Like use
absolutely,
that and
absolutely.
connect
But
to the
I,
world. Okay.
yes, but I think I'm a hardcore believer that as leaders, as founders, we need to be very, very close to what consumers are talking about it, and digital enables that two-way conversation, right? Third, that we do a lot of quantitatives and qualitatives consumer work, which is the typical old world, I would say, FMCG way of doing a lot of consumer work, right? We talk to at least qualitatives focus group at least 100 consumers every month, right? We would do a lot of quantitative survey, not just to see how consumers are liking our products, but also to see what more they want to see from the sleep company. I'll give you an example, and I think two very strong pivots that have happened in the sleep company journey, right? One, we started as a sleeping product brand like mattresses, right? Make people sleep better. We realized our customers started to tell us that we love your products, we love the tech, but I spend half of my day on a chair. Can you make that comfortable, right? And we again started R&D. We said, how can we make sure that we made this polymer, this grade, even the chair is more comfortable with this, because the properties are pressure relieving properties, right? Which is, even when you sit, it's on your body. So I think that, from making people sleep better to pivoting to making people sleep and sit better, is all consumer feedback. Second, I think very early in our journey, we're just a 4.5 year old brand, we realized consumers wanted to touch and feel the products. You're buying a mattress for typically 7 to 10 years, and you want to make sure you touch and feel. And specifically for our technology, people wanted to see what does it look like. We went omni very actively in our journey, and that was all because of consumer feedback, right? And I think that is, but that culture, as founders, we need to set up in our organization. Those processes we need to set up in our organization. For example, what I would always do, I'll just give you one idea. In my, let's say, business review meetings, I would tell every single team, not just let's say a brand team, that everybody has to travel to the stores or meet consumers every month and come and present your learnings. Doesn't matter which function you are from, right? And then we take those learnings and we action them immediately.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Interesting. The chair you are currently sitting on, which has that Ergo Smart label on it, this is a sleep company chair.
Yes, so absolutely, we launched this brand called Argo Smart by the Sleep Company, right? So
Hmm.
it's a new brand which is specially designed for, again, very disruptive new designs, new chairs, only for office chairs and home chairs.
Okay, very interesting. So I will do a deep dive on this brand extension piece in a bit. There are a
Sure.
couple of questions I want to ask first. Uh, can you do a little 101 on qualitative and quantitative listening to
Yeah.
consumers?
Sure. So I think, let me do the typical. See, qualitatives are when you are either doing one-on-ones or you do multi-on-one, right? Multi-on-one is your focus groups, right? I always tell people, before you go for quantitative, do qualitatives. What qualitatives help us understand? Let's say I have a business problem, okay? I want to understand, what are, let's say, what are the spaces to play in office chairs? Is it long lasting comfort? Is it, I don't know what are the spaces that I could play in. What I do is first do qualitatives, deep dive, where you're talking to consumers. Don't try to understand only the category you want to focus on. First understand your consumer. What does his or her life looks like? What does their day look like? Their other category behaviors, right? And then obviously get into your category. What qualitatives help you do is form 3 or 4 hypotheses. Seems like, let's say, from a chair people expect long lasting comfort, or seems like people expect back support, right? Or seems like people want more cushioning. Qualitatives help you get 3 or 4 hypotheses. But now I don't know which one is a bigger space. Do I want to play and design a product which helps with long lasting comfort? Do I want to design a product that stands for back support? Now I got the spaces. Now you do quantitatives, right? And you could meet 200, you could do a survey with 200, 300, 400 people depending, and then you figure out of these 4 spaces that I got from qualitatives, quantitatively, which one, let's say, has the highest either TAM, addressable market, or which one creates a better, purchase intent, or, which one is not cluttered where I could establish my brand.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
I think that's how we look at qualitatives and quantitatives.
Okay. Okay. Uh, when you launched the mattress, did you understand what is the TAM for this, and like what were some of those early learnings?
Yeah,
And
I think
when did you feel you've got PMF?
yes, no. So I think early learning, obviously, when we launched the product and before even we went into the R&D, right? I would say not even when we launched the product, but even before we decided that this is the category we want to venture into, right? I think 2 things were very important. One, can we get a product that can solve the problem, right? That we knew will only time will tell after we start R&D, right? But before we start even the R&D work, is this a market which is a big enough market where, let's say, you want to venture into, right? And we saw that, just to give you a context, mattresses in India is a $2 billion market. Mattresses globally is a $40 billion market, right? So it's a huge market. We saw a few things happening in this market which were very encouraging signs. One, I think, which is happening in lot of categories, you see people moving from unbranded to branded, which you call from unorganized to organized, which is the consumer behavior got a lot triggered with COVID and accelerated with COVID. Today people, so that was one. I don't want to buy these local made mattresses. I want products which are better. I want products, known brands. So I think that was one change, consumer change, we started to see before we ventured into the industry. Two, I think a change that we've seen in this industry over the last 5 6 years, which is also very encouraging. People want to buy products that are good for them and their family, right? I am okay to invest in products that I feel are good for my health or my family's health, right? And I think that consumer behavior change in India, in lot of categories you are seeing, which I think is very very good for the category. So I think understanding the TAM, understanding the category was the first step, right? Second, even in the category, for example, we saw that the experience of buying a mattress in India was very bad. 90% of the consumers will still go to this 100 square foot retailer outlet where you don't even see the products, you see those small mock-ups, and the experience of buying is not good. You have hundreds of products, retailer is pushing the product where they get the maximum margin. So I think that whole experience was bad, product was bad, market seemed like a huge market, and we said let's crack the product. How, to your second point, how do when did we figure out product market fit, right? I still remember, and it used to be a big surprise for me in the early days, right? So when we launched on Amazon, and we had our website, the sleepcompany.in, we would talk to every consumer who were buying us, and we started to see a lot of reviews coming in, and we used to take a lot of feedback from consumers even on the call. Right, I always joke about me and Archil were the first literally call agents at the sleep company. And I remember reading the reviews where people used to say one, two, three things have been stuck in my head since 5 years, right? One review was that it's the best medicine to cure insomnia, right? If
Wow.
you one people said that my cervical pain has reduced drastically, my spondylitis has gone. And in the beginning I used to wonder that, like really like amazing, and we would talk to those consumers, we will call them back, we would understand in detail, and we realized the product delivers. So for the first 1 year we were bootstrapped, and we were and but I think within few months when we saw one, great feedback coming from consumers, two, we started to see numbers grow drastically, I think is when you realize that okay, the product's working. Now, depending on, every founder has a different vision for their company. We wanted to make sure that we become one of the leaders in this country, and hence we wanted to make sure that every single consumer can try our, first knows about our product and can try our product. We decided to go more aggressive, and that's when I think we decided to raise our first round of money, right? Because we wanted to drive a lot of awareness, and we got our first brand ambassador also, right? We decided that we needed to drive awareness and educate our consumers on smart grid technology. I think, yeah, that's how then the next set of our journey began.
Okay, amazing. When you raised your first round, what ARR were you at that time? I think 21 is when you raised it, right? 5
Yeah,
million.
so I think June 21 is when Fireside Ventures came on board. I think when we always say that when we signed the term sheet, we were doing around 1.5 CR a month, right? So 1250, 12, 18 CR ARR. I think within 3 months, by the time the term sheet was signed, or by the time the final money came in, we were doing around 50 CR ARR,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
But that's how in 21 we were, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And after that, you had a Series B within a year, I think about roughly $20 million.
Yes, yes, we got Premji on board, and we think of ourselves to be actually, we were very clear what the business objective in 21 was and in 22 was. And that's why I think we say that for us, both our investors were literally a match made in heaven. And, we got very, very high quality of investors. And fiscal 22, which is around August, September 22, is when Premji Invest came on board, and we did our Series B. We actually just did the Series C in October, where Premji and Fireside Ventures both wanted to invest and make sure they could put in more money, and we raised our Series C from our existing investors.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Uh, in what way were both these investors like a perfect match? What did each of these bring to the table?
Yeah, so I think in early days, actually, when we were just 1 year old, right, we were a digital first brand. And I think what we wanted was two things. We wanted, obviously, any founder wants money, right? You want money to grow the business. Other than the money, what is it that we wanted? We were clear that we wanted an investor, one who understands consumer brands, who can understand what is it that we are trying to build. And ask anybody, I think, who runs a consumer brand startup, they would tell you Fireside is at the top, to
Right.
really understand consumer brands. I think that was very, very important for us too, which was important for us as founders when specifically when you're a first time entrepreneur. We wanted to make sure that we get access to learnings, resources of what other digital first brands are doing and how are they building their brands, right? Those playbooks. The thing that I said, is Meta the right thing or is Google the right thing? Obviously you learn on your own, but learn some, if you see what other brands are doing, you know what to experiment as well. And I think that's why I say Fireside the perfect fit, after 1 year of our journey. In 22, what changed and why, I think Premji was the right, was a perfect fit who came on board. I think that around June 22, we decided that we wanted to go omni. And what do I mean by omni? It's a very loosely used word today, but I'll talk more about that maybe later. We decided that we needed to open our own experience centers, and we didn't want to go the distributor retailer route. That was not our DNA. We decided we wanted to open experience centers, and Premji obviously comes with huge experience of investing in brands that are a lot, let's say, offline focused, right? And I think that's when we decided we've launched our first experience center in Bangalore in June 22, to just learn on how the experience center or omni route work for us. And I think that's how I say Premji was a perfect investor for us to bring on board for our omni journey.
Okay. Interesting. Uh, y- you had once, a little back, spoken of keeping consumer in the epicenter of everything you do. Can you give me examples of that? Like, what does
Yeah,
that
sure.
mean? How does it translate?
Lots of, I think everything we do is for the consumers, and a lot of examples. We designed the product, right? We decided to get our hands dirty and not do what everybody was doing, keeping consumer in the center, right? We didn't launch a firm mattress which we could have launched in 1 month, right? We decided to spend 2 years to develop a product that can make consumers sleep better, right? Two, I think, when we decided to go offline, if you look at mattress industry, Akshay, as I was telling you, it's a $2 billion market, very unorganized. If you see the branded players, most of the branded players sell through dealers and distributors. What does that do? We were selling online, so we were selling direct to consumer. We could talk to every consumer of ours. We could control how is the experience before they buy and how is the experience after they buy, because it's our consumer. We have access to the consumer. Now, in this industry, most people sell through dealers and distributors. What does that do? Two things. One, dealers and distributors care about the margin they get. In the industry operates at a 30 to 40% margin. So, as a retailer or a distributor, I would push a product which gives me the maximum margin. I don't care about the product, I don't care about the technology, right? We cared about the technology, we cared about the product. So, it just didn't fit the DNA, right? I think that was one thing. Second, we realized the customer experience of shopping in these stores is far less, like it's really bad. You should actually go and visit some of the mattress stores and you'll realize it how the experience is. And I think our DNA, being digital first, was we wanted to make every single consumer delight delighted, right? We wanted to delight every single consumer. So I think we decided to go the harder route. We decided we need to open our own experience centers.
Okay. Tell me about the journey of figuring out pricing. What price point did you launch at? Is it still roughly the same price point? And how does your price point decide your TAM?
Yeah. No, so I think for us, we were clear. One, first was to for us to crack the product, right? The way we calculated the price point, we have a certain product and there is a certain cost of the product. And if you look at your PNL, there is a certain gross margin you need to operate at. If you don't operate at a certain gross margin, you cannot build a long term sustainable business. Now, leave the brand, right? But you need to build a business that can pay out for its shareholders, for its consumers, for its employees, right? And I think it was simple that what is the category gross margin? What is the gross margin we need to operate at? And hence, I think that's how we decided the pricing. And then
And
you
what
learn with time that is that pricing and product, and that's what I think is a big part of product market fit, right? When you launch a product in the digital ecosystem at a certain price, are consumers ready to buy your product at that price for what you deliver to your consumers? I think that's a big part of product market fit.
what price did you launch at?
So I think that when we launched a typical king size mattress, which is your 6.5 feet by 6 feet, a 6 inches thick mattress was around 24-25,000.
And how does that compare to other similar? I mean, obviously, every mattress has a different technology
Yeah.
behind it. How does that compare in terms of, is that like
Yeah, so
at the
if
pre
you
pricing
if
level
you
or?
look at the offline market, which is 90% of the mattress category, any big brand, any brand that you would take which has been there for decades, TSC is very, very competitively priced. And the reason is because we send our products directly, literally from our manufacturing unit, from our plant to consumer houses. Right, so we can offer far better technology and quality at, I would say, little lower or competitive prices, whereas a lot of other brands, as I was just telling you, that it's through dealers and distributor, they end up paying such a huge 30-35% margin to dealer distributor, which automatically will be passed to the consumer, and consumer is being penalized for it, right?
Uh,
So I yeah.
hmm. This thesis of direct to customer is eliminating middleman and giving consumer better pricing is, I mean, as far as I understand, is not really true, because D2C brands need to spend on marketing. So it works out to be the same. Like your customer acquisition cost will replace what you would have otherwise paid to your dealers.
Yeah, so I'll split it into 2 points, Akshay, and I'm glad we are having this chat. Okay, so it depends on category to category, right? Let me take an example because I've spent time in FMCG, and maybe I'll give you an example. Let's look at a typical beauty personal care brand from FMCG. Okay, you have a dealer, distributor, retailer margin of around 10% plus minus, right? It's not a high margin, it's a 10%. And a marketing in a typical P&G's Unilever for that kind of a category would be again a 10%, right? Which becomes total 20% expenses. Now, when you're building a digital only brand, right, you're right, digital is not a cheaper medium to drive marketing, and it's the cost of acquisitions are high, right? A lot of brands would be spending around 25 to 35%, which is, yes, you're right, 5-10% higher than what a typical company would spend. And maybe with scale you can drive those efficiencies and hence pass those efficiencies to consumer, right? I think that's how you look at a typical category. But let me tell you mattresses and why is it little different. In mattresses, it's one of the categories that at least I have seen where the margins are very, very high. And I'll tell you why the margins are high. It's 35% margin, which is not a typical consumer product margin. And the margins are high, I'll tell you. And without naming, maybe let's look at the market leader in this category. A market leader in this category does around 1,000 CR business. To do 1,000 CR business, they have 10,000 dealer distributor net touch points. Now, to and hence the throughput per outlet is very, very low. Now, to make sure your dealer runs that outlet, you need to give him money, right? Otherwise, if I don't make any money, I'm not going to sell your product. Given the sale per outlet is so less because it's so fragmented, the margins are very, very high, right? And hence today for the sleep company, I'll give you an example, and that's where I would say Omni also really helped us because of the Omni, because today our marketing costs are far lower than that, right? So the Omni route is actually helping me with better efficiencies, and that's the reason I don't spend so much on marketing, right? And that's the reason, one, we run a business which is very, very sustainable, and two, we can ensure our products are given at a pricing which is far, far competitive than any other legacy brand in this country.
Interesting. Why is why is the sale per dealer so low? Is it that they're selling
Because you
multiple
see
brands?
a
You are one of them, or what is like?
two reasons. One, you see a dealer every 500 meters,
Okay, because it's a
right?
very hyper local product. You can't deliver
Hyper,
long distance.
that's how the category has been created. It has been created very hyper local, but we decided that can we change that, right? Can we focus more on the product, the consumer experience, right? And make people travel at least a 15 minutes of distance, right? So
Hmm.
I think that is what we decided, and we've seen amazing success. Obviously long, long way before we make India sleep and sit better, but I would say, making sure that We don't have a middleman, making sure that we can delight our consumers, we can educate them on our technology, right? As I was telling you, all our experience centers have a sleep lab. You can go and see for yourself how does the product work. And today's consumer, trust me, and I tell this, today's consumer wants to do a lot of research before they buy the product, for themselves or their family. And that's what I think, we decided to offer them.
Yeah, because this is a long-term investment for a consumer. It's not like a consumable item. It's an asset. I mean, you spend on it like you spend on an asset, basically.
You spend 26, literally calculating 26 years of your life on a mattress, so you
Yeah, yeah.
better be sleeping on the right one.
What percentage of what is your marketing cost percentage? Like you said, typical D2C brands is about 25 to 35%.
So actually, we are much lower than that, right? Because we see, very good conversions, and we see, so as we run our business in a very, I would say, efficient way. We want to make sure this year we become profitable, and we want to create a long-term brand and a business. So I think for us, the costs are much lower than what I told you, and we are, yeah.
What is working for you in marketing? What all do you spend on? How much of this is performance marketing? How much is education? Uh, like, just
Yeah.
help me understand.
So I think for us, what we realize, we consumers discover us online, and they read about the sleep company, they read about the technology, the smart grid technology, and then they want to go to our experience centers and touch and feel the products. They also want to figure out that from the range of 6, 7 mattresses that we have, what works best for them, right? So since it's a digital discovery, we spend bulk of our marketing spends are online, and it's mainly two things, as you said. One is awareness and education, where we leverage a lot of YouTube, right? The second is performance marketing, which is about people who are searching for mattresses. How do I make sure I make myself discoverable? And that's where Google plays a very strong role for us. So I think two mediums that play a very strong role for us is, one is YouTube and second is Google.
Okay. So YouTube is essentially like a content focus where you have like either customer testimonials or explaining the technology behind the mattress or things like that. Like what kind of content do you do?
Both things. One, I would think of it to be a more awareness driver, so that I can make more and more people aware about the sleep company and the smart grid technology, right? Two, a very strong role in the bottom funnel, where a lot of people, before they buy, they want to know how the product is, how what are the features of the product, how does the product work for back, or how does the product work for overall body, or how smart grid different from memory foam or form, right? That is little long format content. So I think we do both, a lot on YouTube.
Okay. When I did my MBA, which is about 20 plus years back, we learned, and I didn't specialize in marketing, but obviously in first year you do everything.
Yeah.
We learned about marketing as ATL and BTL are the two ways to do your marketing spends, which today I think is converted to bottom of the funnel, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel. Can you just educate me on what is a modern marketeer's approach towards what spend do you do for what objective?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is either not ATL, BTL, or not even top funnel, bottom funnel, right? I think today's consumer is very fluid. What do I mean? The consumer is very fluid is, it's not that I first see you on Google, then I go on YouTube, then I go and see a print, and then I will open my TV and I will see a TV. Today, I can enter from any place and exit from any touch point, right? And I think the simple logic is, you need to be where your consumer is. You need to surround your consumer across the ecosystem to drive either your awareness or consideration for the brand, right? And I think that's how we look at, we have certain communications which are driving awareness, which could be, for example, you should know what the sleep company is and what the smart grid mattresses are, and two, driving consideration why you should buy the sleep company or smart grid mattresses, how they are, what are the ABC they offer, right? Or you got 100 nights trial, and if you don't like your mattress, you get 100% refund, right? So I think you need to see what is it that drives awareness and what is it that drives consideration or purchase, and hence you need to target consumers with different communications on different touch points wherever your consumer is available.
Can you go a little deeper on this? Give me examples of awareness spends and examples of consideration spends.
Yeah, so I think for us, we do around 35-40% of our spends on, I would say, very hardcore video driving awareness for the brand, and rest we would do on performance marketing, which is about people who are actually looking for a mattress. How do I make sure they can see the sleep company popping on Google, right? And how once they come on my website, how do I retarget them and drive purchase intent? Right now you are aware of me, but I need to because what we've realized that the people do research for anywhere between a week to 2 weeks before they actually make a purchase, right? So I think it's important for you to then educate your consumer on what are the features or what is the technology, and why buy me.
So, performance marketing is a consideration spend.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything
And
that drive performance marketing is anything that will drive purchase, where
okay.
you are optimizing things for purchase. Awareness is where maybe you're optimizing things for views. I want people to view my ad, I want people to be aware of me, right? You're not worried about, oh, is this going to translate into sales or not.
Hmm. So that typical ATL like
Yeah,
TV
you could
print.
take that as a TV. Exactly. There's no way for you to qualify. How does TV directly translate into sales, right?
Hmm.
But you do TV to drive awareness. Let's say typical FMCG word, I drive TV to, I put TV to drive awareness. Now people are, let's say, aware about a brand Ariel. Right now, I go to a D-Mart or a Big Bazaar, and I'm aware of the brand, and then how my experience is, what are the features I see, etc., will drive consideration, and so I think that's how we look at it.
Okay. So I think your ARR today is 200 CR plus, right? I think 250 or something like that was
450 CR plus.
450. Wow. Okay. For a founder, what advice would you share in terms of when you're in that 0 to 100 ARR, what should your spend be on? And when you are in that 100 to 500, what should the spend be on? And then when you cross 500, what do you think that spend will be on?
Yeah, I don't think Akshay, one answer fits everyone, right? Specifically on where your spends should be on. I think it's very different for every single category and every single brand, right? But I think what I would tell the founders is, it doesn't matter which part of your journey is in 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. I think first thing is, what works in 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100 could be different, right? So don't get stuck up that this was working till now, and and hence keep on doing the same. My point is, keep on experimenting is very, very, very important, right? So because the different things can work in different parts of the journey. So I think making sure that you keep experimenting with whatever you want to do, which even YouTube, Google, Meta, even if you want to do non-digital, which is, let's say, your TV, your print, hoardings. Test things, but make sure you understand when you're testing, you're very clear on how you're going to measure it. That's very, very important. Otherwise you'll just spend money and you wouldn't know if it's working or not working, right? So I think that experimentation, agility is super, super important. We all are in a ecosystem of startups, right? So I think that's very, very important too. I think it's very important whatever you do, and I think going back to your question of keeping consumer at the epicenter, talk to your consumer. Even if you're doing make sure that you're running whatever qualitatives, quantitatives, to understand how your consumers are discovering you, so that you know what's working. So I think staying close to the consumer is the secret sauce for everything.
Hmm. What were some of the pivots you went through? Like when you realized that at our stage now we need to change our approach. That's something which was
I
working
think
earlier.
Yeah, I think a lot of pivots not on how to build the brand in terms of communication, but how to reach consumers, right? As I said, till last year, our online business was our majority business, right? We were a lot, even on marketplaces or our direct to consumer website. Today, we realized offline or our omni business is a big chunk of our business, right? So that's a big pivot. So now, so how do you make sure that you drive awareness for your stores, that the sleep company has experience centers within 15 minutes of your driving distance? That becomes important.
More
um,
hyper local advertising.
Yes, absolutely right. Because I want to make sure that somebody who's searching for me in, let's say, Andheri or Bombay knows about my stores in Bombay. People who are searching for me in Bangalore knows about my stores in Bangalore, right? So I think that is so how you reach your consumer can keep on changing, right? Today also we are experimenting with a lot of things, but I think it's important for us to understand what is paying out and what is not paying out.
How do you measure if a sale was generated through offline or online? Because it could happen that someone walked into a store but then bought it online, or like how do you classify like this purchase is attributed to a store or is like a
Yeah,
online?
no, it's difficult, and I'll tell you, we understand our consumer journey very very good. We have a lot of tools that we have created in house where so I don't think we need to attribute is it offline and online, because as I was telling you, it's not black and white. No consumer would either just spend time offline or just online. Very few of them will be doing that. Most of them are fluid. I come online, I see you 2 3 times, I come offline, I see you 2 3 times, and then I will decide where I want to buy. Right? So I think it's important to understand what is the role that online is playing, what is the role that offline is playing, right? Basis that you do your go to market. Not about, oh, is this consumer bought, is this consumer an online consumer and an offline consumer? We don't worry too much about that. I think we're very clear. We want our consumers to find us online, and we're very very happy, and we want them to go to our experience centers, touch and feel our products, see the smart grid technology, experience amazing products in our centers, and then they can buy wherever they choose to, where whichever is convenient for them. We don't worry about that.
Hmm. What are the investments you made in marketing technology? You said you built some in-house tools. Just take me through your Martech stack.
Yeah, we do a lot of things there, Akshay. One is, all our tech stack, which is for our Omni, right? Because we wanted to ensure from day zero when we opened our first experience center that the customer journey, doesn't matter they buy online or offline, has to be exactly same, right? And hence we developed our own proprietary tools to make sure that even if some consumer is buying offline or online, the order is treated exactly the same way, dispatched from the same warehouse, delivered in the same exact way, exactly same message going to the consumer, so that the journey is seamless. Right? So I think those that is one tool that I would say. Two is, as you told me, understanding how the consumer journey, even let's say post purchases. Did I find first? Did I go on your website and then visited the store, or did I first visit the store and visited the website? So your CRM systems, right? That's also something that we've developed, and which really helps us understand the whole consumer journey. What is the first point of contact, what is the last point of contact, average number of contacts, right? So I think we use a lot of data internally to understand what's working on the business and what's not working on the business.
Okay. When a consumer is visiting a store, you are able to identify that this is the consumer who has gone to the store, and then able to also map that he also visited our website.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
okay, like you make him fill out a form with his
See,
number on it, or how do you
it's a
how do
very
you
high intent purchase, Akshay. Right? As you said, people are buying this for at least 7 to 10 years, and a typical consumer actually spends around half an hour in our stores. And we've got a team of great, store managers, and we call them sleep experts at our store. Right? Their job is to make sure that they can understand the consumer needs, they can educate the consumers, they can make them experience the products, and make sure that they get the best product for their body type or their body shape, right? So I think we focus a lot on education and experience. And I think that's what we see consumers love us for, and and that's what is the DNA of the sleep company.
Okay. How do you, I want to go on the supply side of this. Like, how did you build the supply for it? Do you manufacture in house or is it third party? And how does it reach the consumer's doorstep?
Yeah.
Uh,
S- So something we're very proud of, Akshay, from day zero. It's end to end in house, and the reason is twofold. Reason is twofold. One, we had a tech, or we have a tech which is very proprietary, right? And we have patent actually for our smart grid technology. We have multiple patents granted. We have patent granted in India. We have patent granted in Japan. We have patent granted in Saudi. We have patent granted in UAE, right? So we have and in multiple countries like Europe, US, our patent should come in any time, right? So we have patent granted in multiple countries. So I think for us it was important that things are managed in house. Two, I think when you are doing things in house, specifically your manufacturing, your supply chain, you can control customer experience far far better. Today I'll give you an example. Because of that, in mattress category it's little complicated. You have standard sizes, which are typical your king, queen, single sizes, and then you have infinite non-standard sizes, which are custom sizes, which is what the sleep company also does, right? You want a 76.35 inches into 61.75 inches, right? Which is all non-standard sizes. So today, because we control the supply chain, let's look at top 5 metros. Any standard size we can deliver in 48 to 72 hours to your doorstep, right?
okay.
Even a non-standard size, because we make it in-house, we can make sure it is dispatched in 48 hours, right?
Hmm.
If we didn't have our own manufacturing, our own supply chain, I don't think we could have delivered a great customer experience, right? And so I think that's why for us to ensure, again going back again to make sure we delight the consumer, I think owning the manufacturing supply chain internally is very very important, and we've been doing that from day zero.
And do you own the delivery also, or is that with a.
No, we don't own the delivery. Akshay, this category is a heavy and bulky, right? So I think with heavy and bulky, there are a lot of challenges that come in the delivery ecosystem. Now, I think India ecosystem has evolved a lot thanks to companies like Amazon, Flipkart. You have tons of partners out there. We work with very, very strong quality players in this category, and which are our 3P partners, and we make sure we leverage them to deliver our products to customers. What we have done internally, which I think is again to ensure we have a great customer experience, we have a team of delivery experts that we call them, which is a control tower. These people literally hourly are monitoring every single order of ours, right, and ensuring it is delivered as per the commitment we made to the consumer, right?
Wow.
And I
Amazing.
think that is very very important. And if you ask me, are we able to deliver 100% on time, if I say yes, it's a lie, right? It's today because of the ecosystem. It's let's say a truck, something happened on the road, it just didn't reach or whatever. So I would say we deliver more than 98% of our orders on time. We do have 1 to 2% orders that we are not able to deliver on time, but we make sure that we get those learnings. We make sure that we talk to those consumers, very transparently communicate to them why it got delayed, even if it was a 1 day delay, right? And we learn from those mistakes and we try fix them.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I think delivery is typically where customer experience is affected with a lot of other D2C brands, which I think through the delivery expert team, you have managed to make sure that that doesn't
Yes.
happen.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Uh, you've got patents in multiple countries. Is there a plan
Yes.
to global?
Yeah, so absolutely long term, yes, absolutely. We want to become world's best comfort tech brand. It's not just India which is sleep deprived; the whole world is sleep deprived, and that's sadly the part, right? I mean, if you read any survey, any reports, world is becoming sleep deprived. Something which was taken for granted, something which is so important, sadly, is very very difficult to get sleep, right? And we believe with our patented product, with our technology, we can make create a made in India global business. But I think today our priority is India. We are experimenting with one or two countries, and we will see how it pans out, and then we will go more aggressive. But I think today the focus is India. Grow Continue to grow exponentially, and then we will definitely go more aggressive internationally.
Yeah, there's a lot of headroom in India still.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so from sleep tech to comfort tech, this will this need some sort of a rebranding? I mean, even the name itself is the sleep company. Now you're also doing chairs. What is the approach there? Will you treat them as separate brands and like ErgoSmart as a separate brand for chairs, or is it better to have one single brand so that both categories benefit from that awareness? Because otherwise, the awareness spend will double, right?
Yeah, so I think it depends, Akshay, and what is the challenge for us? We have two brands. The sleep company is for products which are about sleeping, which is, let's say, our mattress, smart grid mattresses, our smart beds. We've got smart grid pillows, right? So that's the sleep companies for that, right? Because as you said, the name suggests sleep, right? The need that the consumers have from products that can help them sleep better is very different from the need that consumers have from products that can make them sit better. And Ergo Smart is our brand, which is for sitting products, right? Today we've got office chairs, right? Smart grid, we are world's first smart grid office chair, right? We've got smart grid lounger, right? So I think we have two different brands. The way to drive efficiency is today both our brands sit in one experience center, right? And that's where they discover both the sleep company, consumers discover both the sleep company and Ergo Smart by the sleep company.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you will keep them as separate brands, like, uh,
Yes.
okay, okay,
But the
okay,
way to halo or the way to drive, I would say, efficiencies is it's Ergo Smart by the sleep company, right? Because the technology is the same, right? We want to make sure that we have the same brand values, right? Very tech enabled, science enabled, disruptive products, patented products, very advanced technology that can actually make people sit better, right? We spend almost 8 hours every day on an office chair, 7 to 8 hours, right? And that needs to be comfortable. So I think the brand values are exactly same, the go to market is same, and hence for us it doesn't drive inefficiencies.
Do you see ErgoSmart as an upsell or as a business of its own?
As a business of its own.
Okay. Uh, isn't it too early to invest in two categories? And I mean, wouldn't you spread yourself too thin in terms of resources?
Actually, this has come from consumers. They wanted us to launch this product. It's doing phenomenally well, right? Today D2C, the consumer direct. See, chairs again is a very very fragmented market. It was more of a B2B market. You have a lot of old age brands selling B2B. What I think happened with COVID is a lot of hybrid started. People started to think about chairs. People started to buy their own chair. That's how this category evolved. Today, if you check in the D2C consumer chair brand, Ergo Smart is the biggest brand in the country today,
Oh, wow.
right? Already the biggest brand in the country today. I think now for us, the intent is how do we make more people aware about it, and we drive it, right? Because there is a need for a better designed, a more comfortable chair out there, right?
Hmm.
Because earlier it was, for example, the HR of a company or some team, admin team, purchase department is sitting and deciding the chairs in the office. Today when I experience a chair, I can influence what chair is used in my office, right? And there is a need for better quality, better designed products that can make people sleep or sorry, sit far more comfortably for the long sitting hours that we all do, right?
Mm. Okay. What percentage of your ARR is from ErgoSmart?
So I think today around 20% of our business is on ArgoSmart.
Wow. So it's almost like 100 crore ARR
Yeah.
category. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Uh, you spoke about signing up your first celebrity. Talk to me a bit about celebrity endorsement. When does it work? At what stage? What is the most efficient way to use it? Because I know a lot of brands spend on celebrity endorsement and they don't get bang for the buck. So,
Yeah.
what's the way to think about that?
I think we think about it in two or three ways, right? And for I think every brand it's different. Actually, every category it's different, right? Now the way is first you need to be very very clear on what is it that you want from a celebrity, right? Are you trying to break the clutter, get more eyeballs, and drive awareness for your brand? Are you trying to drive some voice of authority on your brand and drive or are you trying to drive some trust, some credibility, whatever? So I think that is very very important to understand. I think where it doesn't work for a lot of brands, you take a celebrity just because it's a famous celebrity, you put it on, you forget the brand, actually the celebrity becomes the ad, right? I think, and for maybe some it would work, for some it wouldn't work, right? I think we were very clear that we wanted to get somebody on board for two things. One, drive education about smart grid technology and drive awareness about smart grid technology. Two, we were very clear the product has to be the hero, right? We sell a very disruptive, we sell an amazing product which we wanted consumers to see the smart grid mattresses, how it's great for your back, how does it relieves pressure on curvatures, how it has got 2500 air channels, right? And we want, so product was always the hero. We wanted to bring out, keep, stay true to science but bring it out in a way that can be delivered in a credible trustworthy way to consumers, because that's what the brand values are, right? And I think that's where we found a great fit with Anil Kapoor. Right, he goes very very well with the brand ethos. Right, very credible, very trustworthy, could deliver science in a very strong way for us. Right, and I think that's where we've been now, working with him for last 3 years. And as I always say, I'm a big fan of consistency, right? Even if you do the same thing for 10 years, it's going to help the brand, unless and until you say the thing is not working, right? Then you change, right? So I think that is the reason that literally, within 1 year of our launch, 1.5 year of our launch, we decided that we wanted to bring somebody on board to drive education about our products, but product first and then the celeb, right? And you have to make sure that the celeb has a strong sync with your brand, right? Otherwise nobody will know which product ad is this. I think that's how we decided on Anil Kapoor, and we continue to work very strongly with him.
Okay. Who's your ideal customer profile, or which demographic are you targeting?
Multiple, but I'll give you who's my, I would say the core prime prospect. I think we, we look at males typically in the 30 to 40 years of age, working couples, the new millennial population,
Hmm.
staying in the top 30-35 cities. Evolved, doing a lot of research, wants products which are good for them, their family, is what I would say is our prime prospect.
Right, right. Because they would also have the ability to spend a little more for, like, to look at it as a long-term investment and not a
Not just
functional.
that, no, no, I wouldn't say that, because I'll tell you, I'll just give you an example. Today, the sleep company products, amazing mattresses, smart grid tech, are available at 25K. Akshay, they're going to last you for 10 years, right? That's a typical lifetime that people say. So that's like 2,500 rupees per year, right?
Right.
Think of a phone that all of us use. We spend almost more than 50K on a phone, which people
Yeah.
change every 2 to 3 years. So
Right.
it's first, I don't think it's a high investment, even if you get a local made product, you know it's not that low anymore. Two, my point is you're getting a product which is going to be great for your back, which is going to be great for your spine, and will make sure that you have a peaceful sleep after a tiring day, right? So I don't think pricing is a problem that we see. I think it's more about what are you delivering to your customers for that price, right? And how is it worth for that 10 years of my life?
Mm, mm, mm. Right, right, right. Got it. Okay. Let me end with this. You said you read a lot of autobiographies. What are some people that you've been inspired by?
I think a lot of them, but maybe I'll point out two, and I'll tell you. I think those two really forced me to the fence. Those two books really forced me to the fence to, get out of a cushiony job which was very secure. I always say, PNG and companies are amazing, but they have a bubble, right, where you feel very safe, very secure, and you're happy. But I think the two books that made a change. One was, Phil Knight's book, The Shoe Dog. And I still remember this, reading this dialogue which said that, once he says that I didn't know what I wanted to do. He said, I knew only two things. One is, I didn't like to have a boss. And two, I didn't want to be no one. And I think that's what we really believe in at the sleep company. What is it that you're going to leave behind, that you can be remembered for? And at the sleep company, we want to build a legacy brand that can make millions of people sleep and sit better. And that's what we want the sleep company to be known for, right? So I think Phil Knight was, the Shoe Dog was one. Two, I think that really really motivated me was, I think the whole, reading about Amazon and the Jeff Bezos, I think really made my mind, this, that digital is the, is the place, right? When you're not in the ecosystem of startups, your ecosystem is very different, and you don't really realize the power of digital, right? And I think that book changed my perspective and made me realize the power of digital, and we said, okay, we are going to, build something great. And I think that's when I decided this category stumbled on me, and I took the plunge. I always tell entrepreneurs, if you want to start something, anybody, doing a job, anybody, if you want to start something, just take the plunge. Don't think of, the idea is not there, my co-founder is not there. Just take the plunge and things will happen.
And Amazon is also, of course, like the role model for customer obsession.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
the other thing that they're known
And
for.
that's the only way to win.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Priyanka. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Akshay. Absolutely loved my conversation. Thank you so much.